Welcome back to Believe in Badgers on the Believe Network, presented by betonline.ag and Oakbridge Wealth Management. I'm Matt Perkins, joined as always by Badger legend, the Hebrew Hammer himself, Matt Bernstein. Bernie, how are we doing today?
Dude, we're good, man. This is going to be I'm so excited for today. Every day's a holiday on the podcast with Mr. Matt Perkins, but we have someone super special, someone who kind of has three different head coaches, although never physically played football, but was very important in keeping the guys on the field and hydrated and healthy and keeping me and other people hydrated and maybe not healthy at some of my favorite bars. I can't believe you worked at the Great Dane,
Yep.
the U Ridge, and Wando's.
Yep. Yeah. So I worked at the Great Dane. My dad was involved. He was the director of operations there for 25 years, I want to say. So that was my first job when I was like 15, stopped that right before college, and then started working at U Ridge and then Wando's and then the football team, all three jobs, all of college.
Well, we have Emma Peterson, West High School grad, Badger. I'm just thrilled. One, all those places I can remember distinctly, really just getting overserved by you and your dad. I'm just kidding. But I'm not going to blame you because I'm also at fault too. We're not here to talk about some of those times, although that is the coolest story about the Great Dane because I love that place.
But before we get into it, going to pay a couple bills and remind everyone tuning in that we are presented by betonline.ag. Continue to be presented by them, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. If you think you know your stuff, get in on the $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to the online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker. Unwind with over 150 slot games and more. Head on over to the website today to get in on the action. Bet online. The game starts here. Also want to remind everyone that we continue to be presented by Chris Anicetti and his team over at Oakbridge Wealth Management. If you are a current or future professional athlete or NCAA athlete with NIL deals, Chris is the man to get in touch with, and his team at Oakbridge Wealth Management will put together a bespoke financial plan to help you do what you do best, which is perform on the field. They do one thing, and that is take care of athletes. They know what your demands are every single day, so they take care of your money for you. Get in touch with Chris on Instagram at OakbridgeWM_Anicetti. That's OakbridgeWM_ANICETE, or go over to the website OakbridgeWealthMGMT.com. That's Chris Anicetti and Oakbridge Wealth Management.
Lead hydration specialist. We'll get into the different years and all the different things you saw, but what does a lead hydration specialist do?
So basically, just for a little backstory, I started with the team. I got hired. It was right before the 2021 season, right before fall camp. And we call it the student hydration team, basically, or water girl is a more well-known term in the football world. But so I started with that, and the athletic training program moved from an undergraduate program to a graduate program. So they basically needed to hire just a bunch of students to be able to keep these guys hydrated throughout fall camp, throughout practices and games, because it's a big team. So they needed to hire a bunch of people. And I had nothing to do with sports or I wasn't in pre-med or anything like that. I was a consumer behavior and marketplace studies major. So nothing to do with Wisconsin athletics at all. But so I got hired on, and I went through my first 2 years, and we always had someone that was kind of unofficially in charge of the students. We reported directly to the athletic trainers. We were part of sports medicine. But there was always someone when the athletic trainers weren't with us, which was, whenever they're taping or in the AT room, just to make sure everything's going smoothly with setup for practices and setup for games and all that stuff. So there was always someone that was kind of unofficially, whoever was the 5th year that year was in charge. And then my 5th year came around. I did an extra semester because, of course, had to do another season with the team with the Luke Fickle era. So my boss kind of brought it to me, just that they wanted to make an official position with, a little bit of a pay raise, a little more responsibility. And I was like, absolutely. Yeah, let's do it. So yeah. So those
So not a huge, did you grow up a big fan of the Badgers?
Oh yeah. So I'm from Madison, Wisconsin. So my mom went to Wisconsin. I knew I always wanted to go here. I've always been a big sports fan. My dad was a wrestler from Stoughton, Wisconsin, huge wrestler. And I grew up, dancing, running track, playing soccer. So I've always been big into sports, had brothers. So that was always I knew I wanted to be involved in sports somehow at some point. But this job kind of just fell into my lap and I could not pass up the opportunity. But yeah, with those responsibilities, I was just kind of in charge of making sure things were running smoothly, schedules, position, group assignments for practices, and just whatever the athletic trainers really needed to take those responsibilities off of their plate to make sure that practices were running smoothly.
So when I was in school, this is 20 years ago, you might not have been born. They had the trainers were the water people as well.
Yes. Yeah. So they are on the field as well.
Did that separate? Is it just hydration specialists and trainers now siloed?
So with how many guys are on the team, we need as many hands as we can get to make sure everyone is, performing at their, peak performance abilities. So they, once they're done with taping and everything, the athletic trainers, the graduate students are on the field with bottles and like the Gatorade racks. And then we're out there as well. We're just in charge of making sure everything's set up. And then we're with our different position group for that day.
This is so exciting. I have like a trillion questions. By the way, I met your mom on the street with you once.
Really? Was I
pretty
under the
sure
influence, perhaps?
You and me both.
Probably.
And I met your mom while going to Wando's. I'm pretty sure that happened.
That sounds about right. Yes.
Yes. Amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
She won't remember me, but please tell her I say hi.
I absolutely will, yeah.
So we have 3 completely different years.
Mm-hmm.
You literally spanned. Now, what's great about hydration specialists and trainers is you are there for everything. You're hearing dudes get yelled at. You're hearing coaches coach. You're behind the scenes. You're at practices that no one else can go to. There is so much that you're a part of that I think is really special. Now looking back, I'm like, man, I probably got chewed out in front of 3 specialists every day. So you're there for 3 years in this wacky environment that seems to be ever shifting. What was your first season like? Walk us through your first season, how exciting it was. I mean, this is the Coach Chris era right now. What's going into, it says you were there starting in July. What's camp like? What's the summer like? What's the ramp up to the season?
So camp is crazy. I mean, I'm sure you remember it. Those hot, gross days on the field. It's peak humidity in Wisconsin for the summer. And I started, I think it was 2 weeks before camp. So you're kind of getting, we had a little training, they tell us, don't get hit by a ball. Don't be standing in the middle of the field. Just the basic things. But basically day 1, I was sent out there. They're like, okay, Emma, you're with the corners. I was like, okay. So they're doing their individual drills and warm-ups in the beginning. You're standing there and I'm just like, okay, I just don't want to be in the way and get yelled at by a coach. So, so it was crazy to start. It's a learning process. It's a learning curve for sure. Camp is it's crazy to see how hard those guys are working for a full month, leading up to that first game, because that's where, the effort and work is being put in all year, but that's when guys are really like, okay, this is my time to show them and prove I'm starting guy this year. But so going through practices, it's a learning curve, kind of getting used to it. Obviously, I never played football. I think if flag football was a thing for girls when I was younger, I absolutely would have been playing. But so getting to know just the practice structure, the flow of everything, knowing where you need to be at what point is the biggest thing, because we might be doing scouts and then going straight to KOR. So I'm on one end of the field and I need to be on the complete opposite. So I'm sprinting down the field with the guys. This is where I get my cardio in for the week, because I'm running there too. And practice is such a quick moving process, and they might only have 20 seconds in between one thing and the next. So if you're not there when they're getting to that spot, they might be out of water for 5 more minutes or whatever is happening. So, it's on paper, the job doesn't seem that difficult, but it definitely takes time to get used to all these things. And it really separates like the good from the really good people when it comes to this. And then that's kind of how I moved into that like lead position, I guess. But yeah, so that's kind of how my first year went. It was a learning curve, and just kept getting better every day as I learned.
Okay, so then my question is, I should say my sponsored question here is because we've got these great hats from Melon, Bernie and I, still wearing them. We got our segment, it's called Hang Your Hat on It. And basically what we want to know is, what does a good hydration specialist have to be able to hang their hat on? What do they have to be good at in order to be successful? So what does a hydration specialist have to be able to hang their hat on in order to succeed at that job?
Yeah, I mean, just being able to pay attention. Like, I have had so many close calls with the football coming straight at me. So being able to pay attention, knowing where you're supposed to be when, and that's not something that they really teach you right away, like being able to see the schedule, where you're supposed to be. So with that, and then also just honestly, like being able to run with the boys. Like, I hate to say, like, those guys get so comfortable with you so fast. So watching out for any flying bodily fluids is a first. So I've had a few close encounters with some snot rockets as well, which is gross and TMI. But being able to run with the boys, and also just, this is something that I had never expected going into this, but also being a friend to these guys. Like, I never would have thought applying for this, I would end up being, classmates, friends, tutors, sometimes wing woman, like with these guys. And there's so many roles that you take on with that. You're with these guys every single day, every practice, walkthrough, game, whatever it is. So you really build those relationships. And just so being able to wear a lot of hats is one of the things, I think, with being in hydration. So yeah, being able to...
These days are so smart, man. They come full circle. I would have never been able to do that. Hang your hat. I love it.
Yeah. So being able to pay attention, being quick on your feet, knowing where you're supposed to be. Another big thing. So I did a lot of the scout stuff. And with scouts, I'm sure, Bernie, you were doing scouts your freshman year too. You don't really have any break. Like, it's their scout team. So every 3 to 4 plays, you're running in the middle while they're showing them the next play, going through, trying to get as many guys water in about 30 seconds and sprinting off the field. So just being quick on your feet is also, I think, a really, really big thing with that.
Now, Emma, do you have to catch water bottles while someone's throwing them in the air?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I remember you bring up these things about scout team, which I don't want to bring up. Thanks for bringing up ripping the Band-Aid off. But I remember you literally have no break, because they just show you a card. You're in the huddle. You take a water bottle, and they're like, break. And you're like, no.
It's throwing, and then you're just gone. Yeah.
Underhand toss it as far as you can, which is kind of rude, but not really that rude, because you could drop it on the ground either.
And that definitely did happen. Sometimes, yes. Had to be like, hey, you have hands, I have hands, we can, unless you're running off you have to be somewhere fast. I totally get that.
And you can't lose a water bottle.
You cannot, especially if one's laying on the middle of the field during a play. Oh my gosh, which never happened. Never happened. But yeah, I definitely caught some water bottles, threw some water bottles. Like, I remember in the middle of a game, there was a timeout and someone was like across the huddle and they needed water. And I was able to somehow throw it over people's heads, and they caught it and they were like, yeah, they had game face. They were like, that was sick. So definitely some skills that I learned that I was not expecting to with that job.
So year one, do you have a boss who's like, listen, Jimmy Leonard needs water, period 10, and this guy needs water at this point, or don't go near that coach? Like, are any of those things behind the scenes, these are kind of the ins and outs of what do's and don'ts?
Yes. Yeah. There's definitely some things that it takes time to learn these different things. There was definitely some coaches in my first year that we kind of stayed away from. But and there's some coaches that want water just as much as the players. So it's funny because I was with the corners my first year and then wide receivers my senior year and fifth year. And you really learn each player when they want water, how much they drink, if they're drinking water or Gatorade, or if they only drink Gatorade. I used to have like hand signals with certain guys because they'd be out of breath and they can't say water or Gatorade. So I'd have like, this means Gatorade, this means water. So you learn all these little things that you wouldn't think about each player, the ones that you are around the most. Like, so I was around offense a lot my last 2 years. But yeah, funny story about Paul Crisp. One of the last times I interacted with him, he wanted water at the end of a practice and he was like, this is a good batch. It was a good batch of water. And I was like, I mean, it came from the host. He was like, well, don't tell me that. I was like, well, I don't know where you think it came from. But yeah, so learned a lot of different things that I just did not expect to.
Listen, no one would think, but it matters if it's freezing cold, warm, or in between.
Yes. Good. And you know all these things because when it's freezing, you don't want the super ice cold water. You need it to be like room temperature. Otherwise, you can't drink it. So. And
Emma, you'll think this is funny, or actually not, but I used to hate touching the bottles that had water on the outside because it made my gloves wet.
Yes.
And I hated that. Also, Matt Perkins, are you a water, an H2O, or a Gatorade?
We had a hose at my high school, and that's what we drank out of.
Hose water is the best water out there.
Like that's so all. Like that's the only football practice water I've ever had is hose water. So
because it's so good.
Shout out Hanover High School.
I'm a water. My mouth gets dry on Gatorade. Mm-hmm. Gets like too. I don't like that stuff.
Some guys love it super like sweet, like Kool-Aid, basically, because they're like, I'm hungry. I'm like, did you eat food before practice? Yeah. Probably not. But yeah, no, it was crazy. Super. First year was a blast. Just learning everything, and then after that, you have these relationships built and everything, and then everything changes.
Everything. Well, so walk us through, because it says also that you traveled with the team.
Yes.
So what does that entail? Are you on the same plane? Give us like what does a traveling hydration specialist, like, what do you do?
So, I mean, it depends on how far away it is. So, like, there were certain locations, schools that we bused to, like managers and us would bus together, or like cheer. But yeah, so sometimes it'd be everyone, all staff, all players, all on one plane. Sometimes we'd have two planes, which was just crazy. But yeah, sometimes we'd have two planes, and honestly, so traveling didn't become a thing till my first year because of that AT program moving into a graduate program. So that was the first year that we were able to travel, and people that were in the job for longer had more like seniority with traveling. But so it was pretty cool because that Friday night, especially if it wasn't a morning game, we kind of had free reins to do whatever. So, we'd go get dinner. We had our expense cards. We'd go check out the bars and wherever we were. Ohio State, that was a fun. I hate to plug Ohio State, but they have a fun college town for sure. So yeah, so we'd be there, have to, get back to the hotel room whenever you can or need to. And then we'd basically wake up and go to the field and unload the truck with the managers and get everything set up and ready for the game.
Wait, go back a second. So you were able to travel with the team, and then your responsibilities really start the next day. So during that whole time, you can go out, experience the town, and enjoy it.
Yeah.
So Ohio State's top, one of the better ones.
Yeah.
What are some other ones that were a lot of fun?
I honestly
Let's get to the hotel whenever you can.
Like, I mean, we don't have like a curfew. I mean,
if it's I want to be a manager. I want to be a hydration specialist. Yeah, so sounds amazing.
It had its perks for sure. So, I mean, we didn't really have a curfew. And our Danny, our boss for my last 2 years, she trusted us. She knew we weren't going to be idiots staying out till 5 a.m. Like we're all smart girls. So, I mean, it was never a problem. But yeah, Ohio State was super fun. I remember there was so many. I went to Purdue. Purdue was pretty lame, honestly. Like their fields they got the whole train situation. I don't know. But I remember going to like Michigan State. Well. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So that one was definitely lower on the list. I remember going to Minnesota. That one was fun. And I went to Minnesota my last year when we got the Axe back, which was just the best.
Mhm.
But yeah, I went to, I want to say like 6 or 7 different away games. And then like bowl games, the last 2 bowl games were just a completely different monster.
Completely different. Okay, so you're in year one, Coach Chris, pretty solid year. You're around Jimmy Leonard.
Mhm.
Anything from that year about Jimmy that I played with him? He came in from, we were together as freshmen. He played, but I redshirted. But so I love the dude. I mean, you're around this guy. I mean, do you like recognize like that guy's royalty at Wisconsin, or you're just like he's just a dude out there?
No, yeah, he had his roots deep in that team. Like you could just tell the way that those guys looked up to him, and a lot of guys were super excited when he was interim head coach, and I wasn't expecting it at all, but he made a lot of, not a lot of changes, but a lot of things happened in that short time where he was coaching, and a lot of the guys looked up to him, and I didn't interact with him that much, but he was always such a nice guy to be around, and he knew the ins and outs of that team already, so it was a very easy transition to that.
You see, like almost everyone he's coached in the NFL is very successful.
Oh yes.
Pretty much every linebacker we've ever had who
Mhm.
was under Jimmy is still playing. Unbelievable. Wait,
Yeah.
go back for a second because you said some interesting things. So let's talk about like first 3 games happen. We lose to Illinois.
Mhm.
When you wake up the next day and you're like, oh my God, Coach Chris got fired. What is it like for you and your compadres at the hydro? It must have been like your hat blew off.
We were
See Matt
absolutely.
Perkins what I did there?
We love the hat puns. Yeah, no, it was, we were all in shock. Like we were like, no, this has to be a rumor. Like this isn't happening. Like it's almost unheard of mid-season for that to happen. So, yeah, we were all pretty devastated. And just with that whole year in general, those guys were going through so much adversity, that they were already trying to push through, like with the loss of a former teammate and
Mhm.
Gary Brown, which was, so I was devastated by that. That was hard. So they were already going through a lot of stuff that year. And so just these transitions were crazy for everyone, because we also had 90% of the staff was leaving too. So like all the coaches, a lot of operations, a lot of the behind the scenes people that we didn't interact with. So it was a completely full new group of people coming in, that we had to, rebuild these relationships with, learn their styles of coaching, learn how Fickle wants to run his practices. So it was a crazy time, but I honestly think it really brought all of us together even more, because the only people that were really still there that were on the field or in and around the field were like sports medicine, so ATs, hydration, nutrition, and the managers.
Mhm.
So it was, and the GAs, some of the GAs also. So it really brought us all a lot closer. And even like with the guys, it was, I think, nice for all of us just to be that constant, in that transition. And we were all kind of able to lean on each other and talk through all these things. And, we were really the only ones beside like the players and the staff that were there that were understanding what they were going through. So
Mhm.
being able to have these talks with them outside of the field and be able to kind of be a comfort it was so special, honestly, in a time of all of this craziness. Yeah. So that was my biggest takeaway from that transition. And obviously change is a scary thing, but it's not always a bad thing. And I think going into Fickle's era, there's been a lot of really good new changes.
So let's talk about some of those changes
Mm-hmm.
because we went from a completely different team under Coach Chris and Jimmy, um, to a whole new offense, whole new defense, whole new coaching staff, pretty much. Um, what was it like that first year? What was it like going first? Did you guys went to camp right at
Platteville.
Platteville?
We call it
Something
Platt
with a
Vegas,
V.
actually, but
Yeah. So what was the transition like? Okay, so Jimmy doesn't get the job. I'm assuming guys are like, oh my God, what am I going to do? You're probably dealing with a lot of that. We don't need to get into that, but let's move past it because I have questions about actually what's happening on the field. And we can go back into that at a different time. But craziness happens. Coach Fickle's hired. Other people are hired. Brady Collins is coming in. What was the mood of the team like once those guys were hired, so we're talking what, 2023?
2023, yep. Because Fickle was at the Guaranteed Rate Bowl in Scottsdale.
Right.
And then after that is when that transition happened.
Because they played. Wait, hold on.
Oklahoma
did they win that game?
Yep, Oklahoma State. Guaranteed Rate Bowl, Scottsdale. Won that game.
I have questions about transferring and NIL stuff later, but okay. So talk us through like the mentality of the dudes on the team. They're like, okay, I'm going to stay. I'm leaving. These guys are coming in. And then what was it like meeting some of the coaching staff and kind of the difference between coaching styles, and were guys excited? Were they sad? I mean, you probably have a mixed bag.
Yeah. So, I mean, first off, the amount of transfers, like it was heartbreaking, honestly, but like we understood it. We knew that they, needed to go elsewhere to get those opportunities. But it was definitely like everyone was kind of in like a weird, like waiting period of like, so what's going to happen? And my first impression, so it was spring ball. That's when we met all of the new coaches after everyone was back. It was scary, but in a good way, if that makes sense. Like there was just you could feel the shift in intensity, which is something that Fickle has completely brought to this team in the last 2 seasons. And it was a shift with Brady Collins and Fickle, and meeting all the coaches during spring ball, like mat drills at 4 a.m. And you could tell after, I was talking with some of the guys after they were meeting all the different position coaches and Fickle, obviously. And people were like, yeah, he seems, nice guy. Like, I'm excited everyone's just, after this really hard period of the transition, I think people were starting to just get excited for the future, what this new coaching staff is going to bring. So first 2 coaches I met were Tressel and Longo. And Longo and I actually have just maintained a really good relationship I haven't spoken to him really since I've left, but he was always just such a nice guy. Like loved being around him. He tried to poach me to the quarterbacks. I said, no, I'm staying with the wide receivers. But yeah, so I mean, everyone was super, nice and welcoming. And I got to know Mike Brown a lot. And I know Kenny's now with the wide receivers, but Mike Brown did a really good job of just making everyone like feel included and really building that like position group morale and team morale, especially with the offense.
So you also, though, pardon me, so then you worked with 3 different assistant coaches in 3 years then as well. So what was it like? Because you're with a position group, you're with these guys, you're with these assistant coaches. What was the vibe from each one of them? Like, how would you describe the three coaches you worked with in like a word or a short phrase?
Yeah. So, I mean,
or which one of their, or I would ask, like, what one of their mannerisms or sayings keeps coming up?
I feel like especially the first year, I really tried to like you always want to stay invisible during practice. Like you don't want to be doing a whole lot, basically. So I didn't really build relationship with the first 2 coaches I was with. And then with Mike Brown coming in, it's been so long also, I can't so many things to remember in my brain about Wisconsin football. But I can't really remember a lot. I mean, we had Dean Engram's dad coming in, and he was the coach for a little bit, but it was short-lived. So didn't really get to know him on a deeper level. So with Mike Brown coming in, we really built a strong relationship because I was like, I'm going to be with you the whole year because I'm here for a year. So he was a great coach to be around, and great transition person to have there. I mean, I know he's gone now, but he was funny. He made me bring a joke every week to the huddle on, I think it was like Wednesdays or Thursdays. So he made me bring a joke every week. He had a pack of gum that he always he gave to me to hold on to bring to him every practice. And he was like, you can have as many as you want. But so I would always bring him gum. And the whole group tried to teach me how to throw a football for a little bit there, which was fun. But yeah, he really just got me involved within the group, which made me feel so seen and respected, which was huge for me. So so he was a great coach to be around, and out of all three, he was the one I really connected with, I would say.
That's really cool. That's awesome. First off, do you have any of those jokes? You got a joke that's okay for
so many. Yeah, the one that's appropriate for. Oh gosh, let me think. Okay, I think I have one. What do football players do if they become blind?
I don't know.
I got nothing.
They become refs.
Oh, that's good.
That was
I like that.
Low blow. I love it.
I know there wasn't a lot of football related ones, but that's just the one that stuck with me. And most of them were really bad, but I had to bring one. It either had to be a joke or a riddle every single week. And so I think I had to give him $1 if I forgot or something. But yeah, a lot of just random things. One towards the end of the season, I think I had to do push-ups with them at some point. They tried to get me to do all these things. I'm like, guys, this is all you. Yeah.
So on the practice field, what you see some crazy stuff that happens. What was the craziest superhuman feat of athleticism you saw in a practice, or what was the first time you were at a practice and it was like, oh my gosh, I didn't think a human could do X?
So many times you see so many crazy things that would happen that you're like, oh my God, I wish this wasn't a game, because this would be a highlight for the whole year. We definitely had some OBJ moments with the wide receivers, the one-handed. Will Pauling has just been an absolute beast this year on the field. But when he first came in, with wide receivers specifically, there was a lot of really cool moments like that. Tretch, he has been also a monster this year. If he's open, he's getting that ball. So seeing him kind of progress has been super cool. But Braylon, Isaac, Jackson, they always were just trucks. And then this year, something that has been super cool. In general, just seeing these guys' progression from year 1 to year 4 or 5, Cade Yakameli has been also just crushing it. So seeing him being able to get those opportunities now and get on the field. Those, I would say with the wide receivers, I saw a lot. Running backs, I saw a lot, but just, everywhere, every position group, they always have some crazy day. Rico with his picks. That was a constant, and I can't wait to see that this year also. But so there was a lot. There's a lot that you could see on the practice film, but and sometimes they would get video, the media team would get videos of it and post it. But definitely saw a lot of super cool feats of athleticism with that team.
So Emma, you're a young person. Congratulations.
Thank you.
College football has changed drastically.
Yes.
You got to mention, it's so cool that you're young. I remember the good old days, the glory days. College football has changed. It's bananas.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of we're there during all these things happening. NIL, transfer portal, coaches leaving in and out. This wasn't the norm when you were in high school or elementary school when I was playing. It wasn't the norm. You had Barry Alvarez, you had the coaches, they never left, maybe one or two. Is that something that you feel the guys it's normal now? Is it normalized for people to come in and out of the program?
I feel unfortunately, yeah. Specifically with Wisconsin, yes. And even this year, we've had coaches that were there last year that aren't there this year. And it's really, really unfortunate because, even with the transfer portal, and we all know that has been just crazy, and seeing 15 plus guys leave in a year is just terrible. But it's really unfortunate because it's really hard, I feel for these players now to be able to trust their coaches, to trust that they're going to be there and stick around. And when this whole new coaching staff came in, it's kind of they were all, these coaches were able to see their film, see their stats, but it's kind of they're all starting back at zero to, really reprove themselves that, where they're meant, like they're starting whatever string they are, like that's where they're supposed to be. So yeah, it's hard. And it's really becoming a norm now. I honestly don't know with other teams how often that's happening, but I know with Wisconsin in the last 2 years, it's been a lot.
It's happening to everyone who's not Clemson or the service academies.
Yeah.
Basically. Go ahead, Bern.
Sorry, Matt Perkins. No, I have an NIL question, Emma. Since you were there, you're at Wando's, you're at all the, the best places in the world. Are guys like, not millionaires, but are guys like pretty well off? And like, do they have cars? Do they go to bars and say, I'm buying everyone around? Like, I can just say, if anyone gave me money when I was in college, even like a little bit, that was gone. I was such a jabroni. Like, it was like, I'm buying every girl in this place around.
Which I'm not surprised about.
No, thank you. But as
you're generous, Bernie.
I'm very generous.
So generous.
I'm generous.
This is true.
Thank you. But like, do you see that? Like, what's the culture like? Do guys have bank accounts that are ridiculous now? And like, do they buy nice things? Like, I don't know what college kids do these days, sad to say.
So with this group, a lot of them, they love their drip. They love their clothes. They love their chains. The amount of times that they like, guys would come up to me and be like, can you hold on my earrings? Can you hold on my chain for the practice? Because they like forget to take it off. And I'm like, this is probably so expensive and you want me to hold on to it? Like, I'm going to lose this. But no, and I haven't really seen a lot of guys, like they don't flaunt it. Like almost all of these guys are very humble dudes, very just down to earth guys. So I don't like, as much as I'm sure that they probably are with these NIL deals, I don't really like see it that much. I mean, yeah, they'll, if we're all out on a Saturday night, we'd all run into them on Wando's third floor and they'll, buy us drinks, shots, whatever. But yeah, I mean, they're not flaunting it as much as you think that they would be. The most you'd see it in is probably clothes, jewelry, and maybe cars, like trucks or something.
It's crazy because 2 years ago, I Googled Braylon Allen's net worth and it was like 1.5 million. Now that is Google and it could be anything, but to be in college with those many zeros after like a one, to me is unbelievable. I'm happy for
crazy. Yeah. No, it's awesome.
I'm happy for all the guys. I believe they should be paid, but I believe there should be some kind of rule, maybe one, not zero. Emma, so let's talk about this year. I know we're almost done. It's another year. It seems like, last year wasn't super explosive, at least on offense. Seems like we got a lot of better pieces. You're there, ground floor, ground level, last year and this year. What are you excited about? What have you seen that's changed from year one to year two? And Alabama doesn't really count. That's one of the best teams in the nation. But what have you seen? And we competed pretty hard, so that makes me happy. But what have you seen that has changed from year one to year two? And what are you looking forward to with Big Ten play starting very shortly, or Matt Perkins maybe started already, depending on when you put this out?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, which I think we can all agree has happened from Fickle's era, is just that change of pace and change of intensity. And I think that really is being shown in the way that they're playing. Like, you can see that they're a lot more aggressive. They're competing harder. And even in practices last year, you would see it like, sometimes, I mean, things would get heated. I'm sure you remember these days of little fights here and there, but you can really see it in just the intensity and aggression of the way that they're playing. And guys have just been stepping up. Like, you have guys like Cade. I mean, Will Pauling was also a beast last year. Riley Mollman, that one, he has just really stepped up to the plate with that. And all of these, I mean, I can't speak on a lot of the new guys and transfers because I don't really know them as well. But yeah, I think really just seeing the shift in intensity and the way that they're running the ball. I mean, with Tyler Van Dyke, he runs, he can run. And we haven't really seen that as much with QBs in the past. So, which is so unfortunate about him being out now. But yeah, so I think just the aggression and intensity that the level that they're competing at has been the biggest change. And obviously first year, you're kind of still working out the kinks. You're figuring out how, like, what these schemes are going to be like and who fits into what position and place. So I think just kind of putting the pieces of the puzzle together is going to be hopefully the, route that we're seeing this year.
So we play out USC. Matt Perkins, is this going to be out tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll make sure it is, Bern. Don't you worry.
Okay. Well, I'm just, but okay, great. Thank you, Matt Perkins. We play USC. What do you think we have to do to win?
Oh gosh. Getting into the real football stuff, I'm not the most well-versed in other teams. I don't do all the research on this stuff. But I mean, keeping the line of defense, O-line and D-line, I feel like that's the first thing is to, with an offense like USC, making sure that our defense guys are ready. We got our corners and our safeties being able to be covering those wide receivers and making sure our linebackers and our edges are, stopping things before they can even get close to the quarterback. I feel like those are going to be our biggest things. But I think just playing smart, honestly. With Alabama, I'm sure you guys saw this in the media. A lot of alum were not happy with the things that were happening in that game. So I think just playing smart also is going to be huge for them.
You seem pretty well versed in the football side.
Fake it till you make it,
Yeah. Well, Emma, thank you so much for coming on today. It's so cool to get like an alumni now or ex-student, but also someone from behind the scenes who was really there. You look at it from a different lens. Yeah. So I think it's really cool to get your perspective. And we appreciate it so much.
Well, you got to let me get out of here with some rapid fire questions.
Oh, rapid fire.
Yeah, of course.
You try to cut me off.
Sorry,
what I do at the end of every interview. Come on, no. Okay, so we will get you out of here on a couple rapid fire questions. For him, first, funniest player you encountered. Who made you laugh the most?
Oh my gosh, that is so hard because there's so many. There was some days I was like, okay, I need to like put my game face on because I would just not stop laughing. Rico and DP, those two, Daryl Peterson, those two are just hilarious together. Rodas Johnson, Keanu Benton, those two together were also just like hilarious all the time. Everyone in the wide receiver room, it was really hard to keep a straight face because they'd be singing, dancing, like there's a lot, and they're all gonna be mad when I probably don't say other ones' names because when they see this. But oh my gosh, there's so many. Those are the first ones that come to mind, but there are a lot. There are a lot of really funny guys on this team.
Your favorite bar to go to on a Saturday night after a Badger win?
I think we all know it's going to be Wando's.
Okay, that is the correct answer.
This is the correct and only
answer.
Number
3, Mount Rushmore of Badgers.
Top 4 gosh. Badgers. Of all time?
Yep.
Or?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to try to do like a little bit of former and current. I'm going to go Jonathan Taylor, RBU. Matt Bernstein, of course, the greatest Hebrew Hammer fullback of all time.
You don't have to put me up there. I could be an asterisk.
No, we're going to put you up there. You're up there for sure.
You're too nice.
Braylon, of course we got to put him up there. The 17-year-old kid, like he's got to be up there. And then trying to think of a current one that I think probably Leo Chanel, honestly. He's yeah. But then we also got we got Titman, we got Muma, we got Ferg. Like we got so many guys that I knew in the last few years that are now in the NFL, and so it's really cool to see all their progression and everything. But
it's impossible to do a top 4.
Yeah, that's why I asked it to do it. And shout out DJ Mooms.
DJ Mooms, he actually DJ'd on my birthday at Wando's, and that was a fun night for sure.
Oh, absolutely. The best dancer on the team while you were there.
Ooh, this is another one that they're all gonna get mad at me for. Oh my gosh, maybe Rico. I want to say, I don't know. It's hard. There's a lot of them. They all love to dance. They are. Yeah, I don't know. I would probably have to say Rico.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Rico's a good dancer.
Mm-hmm.
We saw him dance at Squat Fest last year. Finally, who's the most intense coach?
Ooh.
Who's the scariest on a day-to-day basis, most intense on a day-to-day basis?
Well, my first year, and now I am totally blanking on his name. Former O-line coach,
Bob Bostad.
Bostad. Scary person right there. That is someone
Who've
I
encountered him would say the exact same thing.
steered clear of 24/7. Yeah. That was the position group. No, like at first, no one really wanted to be with them because we're like, something's gonna happen, basically. But yeah, I mean, we definitely did have some nice moments. I remember he asked me for sunscreen one time, and that was really nice. But
Wait, is there a premier group? Like, is everyone clawing to be with like QBs or RBs or DBs?
not really.
It's
I
like,
mean, how
no?
not really. Everyone kind of just like how when we're getting used to everyone during camp, you kind of figure out which group like you mesh with the best and the coaches that you really get along with. So everyone kind of has their groups, like, but once it comes down to having your group, like, you're like, that's my group. So yeah.
So cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Well, listen, Emma, we cannot thank you enough for spending some time with us here today on Believe in Badgers on the Believe Network, presented by betonline.ag and Oakbridge Wealth Management. We appreciate everyone tuning in. I appreciate Melon Hats for sponsoring us, melonhats.com, MELIN. We appreciate everyone tuning in, subscribing, rating, reviewing, unsubscribing, resubscribing, re-rating, re-reviewing. Helps us get up in the numbers. And let's go beat USC this weekend. Until next time, on Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. I just got to give quick shout outs to the wide receiver room, my hydration team that they're going to kill it this year, and the athletic trainers and all the guys. So I hope they have a great season.
As do we.
Yeah, heck yeah. Stay hydrated and don't get injured.
Yes, absolutely. Stay hydrated, drink all the water, drink all the Gatorade.